Good evening, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to attend our webinar. We are Build. We are an organization that provides startups primarily with a managed service that allows them to build their software. We provide Agile certified product managers to make that process pain-free and hassle-free in terms of oversight and management. And we also, in addition to the Agile certified product managers, provide access to teams that match the needs of each project that uses our platform. We're here today to talk about Agile funding and development. The Chancellor today, Sunak Rishi, announced some incredible measures that will help businesses in general to get through the COVID pandemic. But he mentioned nothing for startups. And it's another disappointing day for all of us, really. But what we're going to be doing today is specifically talking about some ways in which startups can indeed get through this crisis by raising funding in a much more agile fashion, so-called Agile funding. So without much more ado, I'm Segun Osu. I'm one of the founders of Build, and I'm a startup entrepreneur. I also run a company called G2Guide. I've been involved in the Agile world for more than 15 years. I'm an Agile certified practitioner myself, and I've worked with a range of different organizations, helping them to launch their mobile, web, and software products using Agile. I wrote a thesis on Agile planning, and I'll stop my boast for now, and I'll hand over for an introduction to Alex. Alex, do you want to talk a little about yourself?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. So I'm Alex Stoikov. I've been running my own consultancy, technical consultancy for major clients, banks, and the public sector as well. I'm consulting people on project management and technology. And I'm also a startup founder. I've founded 2 startups and now co-founder of Build. So that's it from me.
Great. Okay. So the format for the discussion today, and it will be a discussion, myself and Alex will be talking about different aspects of Agile. We're going to begin with the discussion around Agile in general, okay? Because this is where it started. It started with software development. It was a bunch of software developers who got together and they put together the so-called Agile Manifesto, and that then has created this movement. It's a huge movement that has affected every single industry, and it's growing. It's growing all the time. There are 12 million at least people who use Agile to manage projects across education, within the military, healthcare, you name it. Every sector is using it, and it's not just technology, as I said before. With funding in particular, it's really about using technology to enable much more frequent funding in smaller tranches on demand. And I'm going to, with the help of Alex, later on in the discussion, talk about Agile funding in specific detail. But to begin with, it'll be Agile development and enabling everybody really to understand what is Agile so that we can better understand the connection to and with Agile development. I mean, they are 2 sides of the same coin. You know, they are very, very similar in the sense that everything is iterative, everything is much smaller, and everything is done much more frequently than it used to be done in the past. Now, we are, I think, on slide number 2. I can't quite see where we are at the moment because I'm using a completely different computer. Lucas, is that the case? You are on slide number 2?
Now we're on slide number 2, yes.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so, you know, the idea here is that, you know, Agile has been, it's been a necessity, okay? It's been a necessity because of globalization, greater competition, the fact that we've got a bunch of knowledge workers out there, and of course, the fact that everything is going digital or has gone digital, and the fact that we've got the internet and everything revolves around the customer. everything we do now is about serving the customer. And that wasn't the case as recently as 20 or 30 years ago. 20 or 30 years ago, organizations existed primarily to serve themselves or to push a product at a reasonable price because they had monopolies, they had market share, there wasn't that much competition. There certainly wasn't as much globalization as we're seeing today, okay? Fast forward to the 21st century, fast forward to 2020, and what you have is, as an organization, the need to deliver value at scale, the need to provide services and products that are tailored to your specific customer, the need to compete in a ferociously fast-changing environment. And in an environment like that, you need to respond quickly. And the old management models, they just don't work anymore. The old project management models don't work anymore. The only model that has been proven to work time and time again is Agile. And there are frameworks that we use within our own organization. We use Scrum, in our case, to develop projects, to deliver products, and to do so iteratively, to do so frequently, and to do so in a way that matches market demand and that really does meet customer requirements. And the same applies, okay, if you think about the way that an organization like a bank, for example. So if you think about the banking sector, you think about the challenger banks like Revolut or Starling, okay? The reason that they've been able to get ahead is because within their DNA, you have this agile approach. Contrast that with a typical traditional bank like NatWest. I won't say Barclays because Barclays actually has gone a long way towards adopting agile. Take NatWest. I took my son to open an account. I'm not joking, it took roughly 6 months to open an account with NatWest. Okay, we didn't actually open it, but we were at the point where we were about to open it. We decided, no, we're not going to go that far because it was just too painful. I took him to the high street, took him to Metro Bank. They did it in an hour and a half. Okay, now he's moved abroad now and he needs an account in euros and in sterling. With one phone call to me, I directed him to Starling Bank. And with one internet search, he found it. Within 15 minutes, he had opened his account. That's how different these organizations are. Some of them are agile, some of them are not. Some of them use what we call the law of small teams, and that is the next slide. The law of small teams, okay, some don't. Some use the law of the customer, recognizing that the customer is king, and some don't. And some use what we call the law of networks, okay, and some don't. The small teams are incredibly important when it comes to this thing called Agile, because if you can see that picture on the slide right now, the Big Battleship, that is the situation that you currently found with an organization like Microsoft back in 2004. Huge, massive, ready for battle, but it took one shot, or it would have taken one shot, okay, for their competitors to shoot them out of the water. Look at them today. They're nimble, they're agile. They've got a bunch of really small teams working together, iterating, delivering products to the market, and products that the market actually needs, as opposed to products that the organization has dreamt up for the market to need, because you can't do that anymore. Alex, do you have anything to add at this point before I continue?
Well, look, it's as an agile, the methodology was always there, but came into fruition in the emerged as a framework around the early 2000s, and many organizations. It's the default actually method of delivering. Specifically, looking at the unstable situations in the world, like political, financial, economies, not very stable. It makes it very difficult to plan ahead. For 6 months, let alone a year or more than a year. So every organization needs to adopt this agile method of working and effectively have these small chunks of deliverables and change priorities. So agile is all about changing priorities at the right time, to achieve that business value increments.
Okay. So if we move to the next slide here, what we're doing now is we're moving into this thing called Agile Funding. But to do so, I want to show you some similarities between Agile Development and Agile Funding. And again, I can't, you know, I can't quite understand why in the past, okay, things were done either in a massive way, big bang, or not at all. But I do remember, because I started my career in the construction industry as a project manager, I do remember very vividly, okay, that it was necessary. It was necessary and it was possible to plan a project from start to finish, because we'd done it before. We'd done highways, we'd done bridges, we'd done skyscrapers. There was a predictable roadmap, predictable blueprints. But when you try to take that way of working from a sector where everything's fairly predictable to a sector where nothing is predictable, software development, okay, and where the market is changing all the time, where customer needs might change during the course of the project's development, it's a recipe for disaster. You're going to build something that the market doesn't need. You're going to build something that is out of date before it hits the market, before it hits the shelves. And this is what a lot of companies did, especially in the public sector. The UK government is as guilty as any government of doing this. Alex, before I jump into this slide, do you have any war stories from the public sector?
Yeah, well, plenty. Yes, definitely, plenty of war stories. So I've spent a year and a half working for Cabinet Office, looking specifically at, well, effectively you could say they've implemented this agile method of funding. So how every digital product works is a budget must be agreed and allocated, but you will not, the team implementing the digital service, would not get the entire money straight away. They will get chunks of this money depending on reaching certain milestones and certain achievable sort of targets, right? So an example, they say, we were building a service for people to book their appointments at the GP. We're thinking about an uptake of the service. Say we're probably looking about 1,000 people a day after we launch in about 2 or 3 months. Okay, so that's set as a condition. So, you know, after 6 months, you'll get the remaining part of the budget if you prove that you've achieved that. So it's a very similar model where, yeah, it's effectively the agile funding, and this is done for the only reason of better control and also making sure that the team stay focused on what they promised to deliver, as opposed to writing a blank check saying, yes, please just do it, whatever it takes. And that model didn't really work. And we know all these horror stories about NHS spending billions of dollars, pounds rather, but you know, not really getting the services up to speed and up to standards. So yeah, so government really kind of pressed on this agenda, and it paid off. So you know, the services are, you know, improving massively, and all the departments are getting this way of thinking.
Great. So if we look at, you know, this thing called Agile again, everything is Agile. It's pervasive across different industries. Agile funding, why is it so similar to Agile development? Why are they two sides of the same coin? Well, everything is small. Small is the new big, in the sense that, you know, if you are funding an Agile project at the moment, if you're an investor, you can't predict the future, okay? You want your investment to be small. You want your investment to be frequent. You want your investment to reflect a real valuation, and you want your investment to generate ROI. In terms of Agile development, okay, you want to develop things incrementally. You want to have small increments of value delivered to the market frequently, okay? In the case of what we call, everybody's familiar with a minimum viable product, okay? In Agile development, that is the norm. It's become the norm over many years. Within Agile funding, the idea is, again, that you should put in the minimum. You should put in the minimum to begin with, and then gradually increase the amount that you put in over time. Again, it's using technology to enable that to happen. In the past, what would happen is people would spend 12 to 18 months, you know, trying to figure out, you know, how they could raise investment. tons of time with solicitors, lawyers, trying to figure out the paperwork and having tons of meetings. Today, as I said before, it's technology enabled and it's quick, it's easy, it's much more cost effective. Then you've got this whole idea of things being on demand. So Agile funding, by the very nature of the use of, because you're using technology, and by technology, what I'm talking about is I'm talking about funds like, crowdfunding platforms, or I'm talking about some other platforms that are enabled by DLT, blockchain, for example. And you won't know about this, okay, but they are enabled by that type of technology, okay? And they just it just makes it so much more likely that you'll be able to raise the money that you need because you're only asking for it when you need it. It makes it much more likely that you'll be able to achieve your objectives by speaking to an investor because you're able to show them a valuation that is much more realistic. And the same or a similar concept applies to Agile development. With Agile development, what you're doing is you are developing small increments of value. You're deploying them to the market frequently over a longer period of time than you would otherwise. And then in terms of what kind of value you are providing, I mentioned earlier the whole idea of your valuation. Okay, it's all about the stake that you might have in an organization when you are funding a startup. Your equity stake in terms of the time that you make your investment may change, okay? In the case of Agile development, it's all about monetizing that development, monetizing the increments of value that you've introduced into the market at any one time. Let me move to the next slide, because I think we're gonna talk about you, the audience, for a while. For a few minutes and ask you a few questions. Now, we're kind of new to this technology, but one of us is going to ask the questions. I think it's the organizer who's got to do that. Lucas, here you go. What a guy. Okay.
All right.
If everybody can answer this question. Yeah, it's in progress. So a lot of people have answered. Just wait for a bit. So just a third of people have answered so far. Most people are answering no. 50% have answered. Come on, guys. We're at 60% now. The majority are no. I think we can, in 5 seconds, you can close it, because I think the majority are saying no, and that's representative enough. There's a big gap here, massive gap. We just wanted to see what kind of audience we have today. A few weeks ago, the audience was primarily developers. Okay, you can see now. Right, okay, good. Fantastic. So this actually means that Agile, most people have been new to this whole concept of Agile, and like, a couple of weeks ago when everybody knew what we were talking about, this time around, I think we might want to dig a little deeper into Agile. Alex, what do you think?
Yeah, let's test the audience. That would be a good thing to do.
Let's see what people say to this question. Okay, it looks like it's evenly split. 30% of people have voted so far. It's very familiar. More people. A little familiar. About 50%. Most people are fairly familiar, or at least a little familiar. I think we've got a good enough representation here. It's going up to 80%. When it hits 90%, you can stop, Lucas. When it hits 90%, stop. And then we'll continue the talk, and there'll be another poll at some point, I'm sure. Here we go. I think we can stop it now. Wow, look at that. So it's become really, really popular, which is so cool. If we'd asked that question 5 years ago, it would have been, you know, significantly fewer people that would have been very familiar with it. Okay, let's power ahead. What do we have next?
Okay, there's one more poll, but we could run it later, so it's not a problem.
Okay, do you want to do that now, or do you want to?
Yeah, maybe we should do that anyway. So I'll launch one more. So one more already much for this, but it's really interesting to see what people think in terms of
and what people are doing.
What your kind of immediate plans, because last time we had very interesting responses on this one.
Yeah, very, very interesting, in fact. And even now we're seeing a polarization towards, so a lot of people in the audience are actually in this industry, which is interesting. We've had like 30% of people have voted so far. Nobody seems unsure.
I mean, this is definitely the post-COVID time, or maybe it's still.
Yeah.
It presents a great opportunity to launch a business, or specifically digital business. So
it does.
It'll be very challenging to launch, you know, physical place-based business these days because of the whole uncertainty about when we go back to normal. But once people have, you know, more ideas about the digital, and just in general, the population goes onto the digital a bit more, pressing on more. So
what percentage?
We got 67%, and let's give it a few seconds.
Last audience, anyone?
Okay, I think we can close it.
Great, let's see. Wow, so there's a lot of people, 3 months, 6 months, okay? So
okay.
Okay, great, thank you. Right, so let's go to the next slide, because I think, Alex, okay, you go for that.
I'll go on this one. So here I wanted to represent the classic pain that a founder would normally have. So as a CEO or someone running the show, you have too many watermelons to take under your arms. It's very difficult to stay, you know, on top of product development, your business strategy development, then press on sales, marketing, etc., and also fundraising. So fundraising is quite a big watermelon, I have to say. I've done it myself. It takes, you know, lots of your time. It's a full-on process, and effectively, the moment you start on this journey, it's a very important journey, of course. You basically just you know, neglect massively the other areas, or you just have to work really hard to catch up on the others. So with Agile Funding, that's definitely now is improved, and we could go into the table that I presented later on. So let's go to the next slide. Okay, so this is more about just a good representation of the Agile Funding process, as you know, as opposed to paying something, waiting for many years to come up with a bulb, with something that works, and it's already outdated, as we can see in the picture, right? So the strategy is like chunks of money, stay always on the edge, develop what's needed in the markets, stay focused, and get your money as you progress. So
exactly, and also it's all about only raising money when you need it. So raising the money only when it is going to be invested in your organization. There are too many stories in the past of startups who raised money at a time when they didn't need it and couldn't really use it to grow their businesses. Okay. What we're saying here is that you should raise your money frequently, okay, and do so when it is going to be of greatest value to you. Now, if you do it that way, if you do it in a way that is agile, if you raise money only when you need it, the biggest benefit that you're going to get is that the valuation that you're able to achieve later on, okay, will be much better. So raise £1,000 today at a certain valuation. Raise that same £1,000 in a year's time. You're better off raising that money in a year's time if you don't need it today. Okay. So the whole idea is that raise that money when you need it, raise it frequently, raise it on demand. Okay. And there is technology that helps to do this much more cost effectively than otherwise. So in the past, the idea would have been every 12 to 18 months, you'd wait for your opportunity to raise money. You'd go to a bunch of investors. You'd spend, as Alex mentioned, a lot of time doing this. You'd have to sacrifice time running your business to be able to raise money. That belongs to the past. That belongs to the ancient past, in fact, because you can raise money much more frequently than the traditional 12 to 18-month cycle. And technology will enable you to do this in a fraction of the time that it would have taken previously. And you will get a much better valuation because you're doing it this way. The bottom line is it's easier, it's lower cost as well, and it's much faster than it used to be. And there are some studies. Alex, are you familiar with the study from Seed Legals, I think it is, where they talked about what impact this strategy would have on the amount of equity that you would need to give away in return for the funding, for the investment? I think they did a study that said that in 2018, they studied a bunch of startups who on average had to give away something like 15%. And then in 2019, okay, they looked at another bunch of startups who applied a different strategy, this Agile Funding strategy. So going to the market more frequently, raising more frequently, raising smaller amounts more frequently over a longer period of time, on demand, using technology, of course, to do so. And those people, on average, I think their average amount of equity given away was 7.5%.
Yeah, so it's half of what you normally expect to give.
Yeah.
And it's all to do with the risk that the investors take in the beginning, and it's difficult to evaluate a startup in a very so we're talking about pre-seed and seed rounds, right? It's really early on stages. And if you go to the next slide, so Lucas, so there's a slide. Yeah. So this one is, we can do it a bit later, that's not a problem. Let's go on the discussion. So the next one, please. That's another poll, which is very peculiar. Okay, so yeah, that kind of shows some of the benefits that Segun just explained. And so Seed Legal has been pioneering this approach from the legal perspective. So they've built a framework in order for you to very quickly do the legal stuff around getting those tranches of investment, right? So now this big crowdfunding platform are taking on this journey. So they're building a product which will allow effectively the public or the kind of non reputational investor to fund smaller chunks of your progress. So we see the emergence of very much like a lot of platforms, and established platforms are going to do this way. So I just want to point out, I'm not going to read all of it, but some of the benefits both for the founder and the investor. Obviously, it's less risk for the investor. They see exactly what they're paying for, and they don't really risk big tranches of money. So just an example, say you may want to raise £200,000 seed capital to start your project, especially if you're not known, you haven't got good track record of delivering. It's very difficult to convince the investor to doing so. Also, you may want to even starts from somewhere. And in the beginning, that the whole idea of raising just 50K seemed outrageous. The legal cost alone would not tally up with the expectation, with the idea and the due diligence required. But now with this framework, you'll be able to do 6 rounds in a year's time, or maybe half a year. So we're looking about even a month pretty much of 20K or whatever you need to run the business and progress. And this way you achieve, and as you can see, if you get through a framework like Seed Legals, you get this initial setup, and then everything is tied to your progress, right? So for the founder, it gives you a bit more predictability in your business development plans. So we're not talking about writing a business plan, which don't really know what's going to happen in 6 months' time, how it's going to work out, but you know that this is what I need, this is what I want to achieve, that's how much money I need. So I go to my investor and they give it to me. And frankly, that's been happening before, but it's never been structured properly, right? So, and you likely to achieve a sooner go-to-market strategy, because this will be one of the main focuses, right? So again, we're talking about the distraction goes away. And yeah, so it's less time spent you're chasing, and the investor gets good predictability and visibility on your business. So if you go to the next one, I'll just cover some of the landscape in this area. So, obviously looking at the flip sides, on the other side of the coin, there's certain challenges you may think of, but these are overcame with really the use of technologies and systems. So talking about things like the legal complexity and the whole funding model, it's been pioneered by Seed Legals mainly, taken up from other platforms like Seeders, but there's many more. We've got a good list of those. Investors may become more involved. Again, that's more to do with knowing the model, having this sort of a feedback loop of how you're getting on. And so about the discipline, about the founding team. So you need to work in a very structured way, right? And this is where Buildsy comes in, because we built our framework, and it's a very established framework. It's massively inspired by what the public sector have done for the last 6 years successfully. So you start working on your product in a particular milestones, well defined. Once you hit them, the technology just proves everything is indeed in a good shape, and automatically actually reports to the investor and through the investment platforms that you've achieved this goal. So the end goal of the whole ecosystem and the system in general is have that flow of automation and data that allows you to effectively, a very smooth journey through the Agile funding. So that's becoming a reality, really. I mean, it's the new model, and everyone's quite happy and taking on this one. On the next slide, I just want to if you go on the next slide. It's a very quick presentation of specifically the Provenance Model of Buildsy. So what we do, we follow through your product development. So just to say, we're all about delivering your product, not so much about the business and the financial model of the business, but by taking on this tracking and the management of your product development, that will allow you to focus more on your business side as well. So say in a typical product development, you've got certain milestones, like you've got a validation, initiations, certain milestones of achievable, and then you go to launch your MVP. Throughout the journey, first of all, Buildsy will supply your development team, or you can bring your own. We're agnostic to who actually works on you, and our teams are vetted as well. So better use one of ours. We've got associated assurance experts that could be on project management, technologists, really qualified people who can jump in every now and then and just provide us extra assurance or help as well in that matter. And then we've got a bunch of automated bots. So this is where the robotic automation process comes in. These are tools that allow to monitor real time how your project behaves and how it progresses, and special assurance bots, as we call them, we need to find a better name, produce certain reports in a digital way that will reach the investor in one way or another, either directly by producing certain emails or through the investor platform. So that just a quick representation of how the built-in model fits into the overall ecosystem. So what I'll do at that point, just to give you a bit of a time to sink in, we always run this interesting poll, which I'll do on remote working. So launching now. So are you planning to work remotely? I guess most of us do work remotely at the moment. I personally quite enjoy it. I'd rather stay that, kind of keep that for eternity. But of course, it makes sense to have some, physical interactions, of course, with your co-workers. But I'm quite enjoying it. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see your take on the situation.
What percentage are we at right now?
64.
Okay. I think there's going to be, I'm taking backs on this. Lucas, what do you think? I think most people are going to be sometimes.
Okay. Okay. I'm happy to close it right now.
Okay. I'm so wrong. That's incredible. Wow.
Well,
wow. So people don't want to go back. Interesting. I mean, off topic a bit, but it will be interesting to see what impact this has on collaboration as well, and the ability to come up with really cool ideas without that, face-to-face or more intimate contact with people. And we do all of our teams are remote, and I've been working with remote teams for nearly 20 years now. But the problem is the team itself is co-located, so the teams work very closely together. The client is over here in the UK or the US. The teams could be anywhere in Europe or in Asia. We get collaboration every 2 weeks with the client. We get collaboration every day between our project managers and the teams, okay? But that intimate contact that sometimes you need is often lacking. And the reason that we can get away with it, okay, is because the problems that we solve are fairly well defined in advance, okay? Now, without that, I think you'd need much more intimate contact. But that's a bit off topic. Let's move forward.
Yeah, so next slides. Well, I think that's pretty much what we wanted to present as such.
But there are going to be questions, aren't there? There are going to be questions. So if we ask the audience first of all, okay, but no, Kevin, you have a gift for the audience, don't you? You have a gift, you have something to offer, and then we have questions. Sorry.
No, that's fine. So basically, as a thank you to everyone for attending the webinar this evening, you'll receive on email 2 things. One will be an ebook, which is entitled the Digital Talent Playbook from Builds. And effectively, that's a guide for startups on the best practices of how to utilize digital talent. So you will receive that on email, but mainly what we want to offer is the reason Builds exists is to provide a conduit between you, the entrepreneur with the idea, and a development team that will build that idea with you through Builds. So that's why we exist. We provide a subscription offering, which basically is usually £96 per month. And what that subscription gives you access to is it gives you access to a platform where you can clearly define your requirements for your project. And it also provides you with a platform whereby you'll receive at least 4 to 5 detailed proposals from teams that we know and trust, remote teams, software teams, and you'll be able to virtually meet those teams as well. So not only will you receive 4 to 5 proposals with how they will go about building your application and the costing behind that, but if you are interested, you will also be able to virtually meet them. So we'll set up an online session for you to interact with them. And effectively what we offer is a product delivery guarantee. So you won't have to pay for the product to be finished until we all agree that you, the product team and builds, that we have met your original requirements. So effectively our aim is to remove the risks or perceived risks of working with outsourced development teams. So for 3 months, we'll give you complimentary access to that £96 per month subscription. We're going to limit the numbers on that, I think, to the first 10 people that sign up following this webinar. So what I will do is reach out to you all individually with the details following this, probably most likely tomorrow. And you will have 7 days to come back to me and let me know whether you'd like to go ahead with that complimentary subscription for 3 months.
Cool, thank you. So will we have questions from the audience? Let's see if there are any in already. Now, audience, if you on your screen, you should find that you can ask questions. I can see one. Okay, no question. No, I can't actually. Yep, I can see a question come through. Let's see, I can't quite open it.
I can read it out. So
okay, yes, from Dapo.
Yeah, Dapo. So what happens after the complimentary 3-month subscription?
Okay, Kevin, do you want to answer that, or would you like me to answer it?
No, I can answer that. Effectively, what you'll have access to is for 3 months, you'll have full access to the platform whereby you can request proposals for different projects you're looking to build. Following that 3 months, you can choose to continue to subscribe, and we will bill you £96 per month for that access. Or alternatively, obviously, there's no commitment, no obligation. You can cancel that subscription if you no longer wish to access that platform.
Great, great. Okay. Any other questions from the audience? Is that another one I see? Yeah. Yeah. Here's another question.
Okay, I can read it out. So I imagine your teams are full stack developers. And what happens if I'm non-technical?
Perfect.
I can probably explain a bit more. So in the core of our system, we design it for specifically non-technical founders. So I'm very much technical myself. I've been managing, but also I'm a certified software architect. But we've got a bunch of really technical guys on standby. So one of our initial phases, the initial phase is integrated in the framework, is you put down your requirements of what you want to build in a very much kind of human readable form, just answering a number of questions. Then the system would pack them in a very much technical, descriptive way, right? So in order for technical teams. So this is the first thing you get straight away out of the system. It's a specification that is you can use in any team, even outside builds if you want. But if you continue with us, our technical teams are trained to understand exactly that type of specification. They get on. If there's some uncertainties or there'll be more details, the teams would engage in this kind of conversation, very much iterative, friendly conversation about what exactly you want to build. And the assurance we provide is we always have an eye of what's going on in this type of, we could call it a technical discovery effectively. And we can draw some of our experts to come in if your project is particularly quite technology heavy or difficult in any way. So no problem at all. And we actually welcome non-technical founders.
Yeah, I mean, to add to that, I mean, that is one of the core reasons why we created Builds, was to help non-technical founders. I mean, I created G2 Guide roughly 15 years ago, and as a response to the need for a non-technical founder solution, Builds was that was part of the reason for founding Builds with Alex. So yeah, it's right up our street. Now there are some more questions there. Alex, do you want to read out the next one?
So we got one from Stanislav saying, do you offer any help to technical founders looking to fund a project but not to build a team yet? From what I understand, the system at the moment is tailored to new projects starting on them, but there's always an opportunity to continue building your project without picking one of our teams. So by placing your development onto our system, it's, you get all the assurance. So that's the subscription for, actually. You get the assurance, but also you start creating this track history, which will help you with funding. So the whole offering on funding, we're working on it right now, but yeah, we're definitely on the agenda for very soon, in near future. Anything else you want to add on for the case of someone wanting to just look for funding through Builds It?
I think for, with regards to funding, the funding that we will provide is specific to the software development cost. Okay, so if, for example, you needed £10,000 to develop your software, we would effectively find a way to give you up to 30% of that. Okay, so if you are looking to just build something and you're looking for a small amount of funding, we're the ideal first stop shop. If, on the other hand, you're looking to fund salaries, you're looking to fund other aspects of your business, then we're probably not the best place to stop at. We're focused primarily on helping make sure that startup founders are able to fund their technology as opposed to the whole business. I hope that makes sense.
Okay. So
now there's another question, another bunch of questions there.
Okay, so one from Ole, do we have to have validated our idea prior to using your service? That's a very good one.
Very good one, yeah.
Yes, we obviously validating the idea that could happen in different dimensions, right? Different levels. We're talking about technical validation of the product, which means it should make sense for a team. Oh, got some echoing there. You can put yourself on mute.
Can we? Yeah, I think the echo is gone.
Okay, yes.
I think in terms of validation, okay, if you're looking for validation in terms of product market fit, that is something that you would need to do primarily through an MVP, a prototype, something that will enable you to get feedback from the market. Okay, if that's the case, we can certainly help you. Okay, Alex was alluding to technical validation as well. Okay, now specific to our platform is the concept of, yes, we'll help you find the right teams, but before we help you find the right teams, one of the big things that we do is the technology validation. So making sure that we have exhaustively looked at all of the different ways in which you could build your platform. Do you need something as simple, for example, as WordPress? Or do you need something more sophisticated involving bespoke programming, PHP, C#, or whatever it might be, okay? So we will do the technology validation, look at the options, rank each option accordingly, but we'll also help you to find the right teams that have those skills and that have been vetted, have been shown to be able to do that work within your sector, within your industry, maybe, if they're available, and or within the domain where you are looking to that you're looking to build your technology on, for example. So, I think the answer there is yes, we can help you by building a prototype, an MVP, and or by helping you with your specific technology validation as well. I hope that makes sense, Alex.
No, not a problem. Yes, that's definitely the case.
Now, we've got a lot of questions here to get through.
So what I suggest, I'll just pick some of those, and we'll definitely get the questions and answers emailed back to you. And so there's questions about the languages that we use for developing the apps. So we try to stay agnostic and we get the best fit. That's the answer. So that could be anything from simple PWA technology, which basically is a very lightweight app without the need to go and register on the market. In most of the cases, actually, that fits well. So using some modern development language and framework like React Native, to even native development is on the offer for the right type of project. So our teams suited to handle different complexities. There's a question from Devika saying, what sort of device, what sort of services or help is for non-technical startup, especially in property and agriculture? Again, we will tailor your needs and match it with teams with experience in these domains, ideally. And also, as I said, we've got a whole layer of service of technologists from any industry as well, so we could definitely handle any industries. So I'm just going quickly through that, just with time.
That's quite a few.
Do you assist in non-technical founders, manage technical co-founders if necessary? Well, you know what, we thought about this type of service as well before, and we're not a matchmaking for co-founders as per se, but I don't see any reasons why you can't, once you find a team, go into some sort of agreement as well on getting them as a co-founder. But we can definitely help you with the right websites and frameworks on finding your technical co-founder. But the bottom line is, what do you need your technical co-founder for? So Buildsy will act as your CTO effectively in the early stages of the product development, and you're likely to actually need a proper CTO once you're operational. So we always said that before. In the initial stages, you just need to build the thing, and this is what Buildsy does. Just builds your project. And
keep on going through the questions. There's so many.
Yes, there are many.
I mean, keep them coming, because if we can't get to them tonight, okay, and I think we will be able to get to most of them, but if we can't, then we will follow up by email with you directly. But keep them coming, okay? Use this question area for as many questions as you like. Obviously, for questions, I can see there's a question from Matt regarding how much does it cost? No, how much did your customer? Well, there are so many. There are some questions regarding costs that I think might be better addressed through email, and then, or by phone, I guess. After the webinar at some point. I mean, in terms of how much customers have raised so far, this fundraising that we are offering is a fairly new area. Okay, so we're not talking about billions. Okay, we think our platform is going to be good for people who are to raise modest to support, like I said before, their technology development. So let's say, for example, you're looking to build an app, and you've got a budget, for example, of 50,000 or 30,000 or whatever it is, then we will probably be able to help you with about 20 to 30% of that, depending on what you're building, depending on the appetite that you have, depending on a number of factors. But the upper limit would be 30%. That would be our upper limit.
Okay, great. There's a question on what if I already have a team in place? Can you still help me, and how? Our service is, yeah, we could certainly help, but a big part of our service is matching you with great teams. And you can still have that. You can still compare the offers you get from existing teams, but there's certainly ways to bring your team onto the platform. So one of the benefits of using one of our vetted teams is because the team's been trained and know the framework very well. So we'll need to make sure that your team have enough knowledge of not just how to use the platform. It's fairly simple to use, but it adheres to our specially designed framework, so especially an Agile framework.
So yeah, exactly, Alex. So you want to talk about the Agile Scrum framework that we use. It is very similar, okay, to standard Agile Scrum, okay. So we use the Scrum guide, but it has been specifically modified for remote teams. So there's sufficient collaboration, sufficient opportunity for interaction and communication. That's the only difference. But otherwise, what we're looking for here and what we've done is we have teams that are specifically well-versed in Agile Scrum, okay, but with the additional twist that is needed for them to be able to work effectively with us and with clients remotely. That's all.
Yeah, I think it's probably most of the questions.
I think there's another one. What does it cost? There's a question about what does it cost to get product development funding from you. We're not charging a fee, okay? Remember, what we're doing is we are funding, okay, or helping to fund part of your software development cost, okay? So if we deliver a team that can help you, okay, we know that that team, for example, might require a certain fee. We will fund up to 30% of that fee, effectively. Depending on the product, depending on the industry, we will make a judgment call when we see what you're looking to build and what you're looking for in terms of investment.
Okay, I think that's probably the majority of the questions, not counting the repeating ones. So,
okay. Lucas, how are we doing for time?
Yeah, spot on there with the question. It's 7:29.
Fantastic, fantastic. Wow, audience has been awesome. Okay, awesome audience. We salute you. We absolutely salute you. Panel, Alex, Kevin, Lucas, thank you so much for your help, really. This is fantastic. We'll do another one, audience, pretty shortly. We will let you know when. And of course, Kevin, Lucas, myself may follow up with you to maybe give some more depth to the questions that you've asked and to see what other things we might be able to help you with. Kevin in particular will follow up with our gifts. You'll love the playbook. It'll really show you how to really get to harness the beauty and the talent of digital teams. That book, playbook I should say, okay, is based on roughly 30 years of experience, and it is very much one of those things that is a foundation. It's underpinned by an agile mindset. It's got 3 key concepts behind it: the mindset, okay, the playbook itself, and a framework that you can actually apply and use to work more effectively with digital teams anywhere in the world remotely. So with all of that said, we salute you, audience. Looking forward to seeing you and hearing from you again. And panel, thank you really very, very much. You've been great. Lucas, Alex, Kevin, and myself.
Of course, yeah. Thanks, Shagun, of course. Okay, thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.